So today I'm going to be looking at the MacBook Air M1 and the Dell XPS 139310. So just to start off, this Dell XPS 13 is a little bit smaller than the MacBook in terms of its volume, but I would say the weight is about the same between the two. I think they're both really just as portable as each other, but the XPS has smaller bezels which help it keep so small. So to start off, I'm going to open the laptop. As you can see, the Dell resumes almost instantly, and the MacBook opens even quicker. But I think they're both so fast that it really doesn't matter. And I'll be comparing the two displays of these laptops. So with the XPS 139310 over here, it is a 4K display, 16 by 10, and it's higher resolution than the MacBook Airs. It's also brighter and it's a touchscreen, and it is really good at reducing the reflections that you see. With the MacBook Air, it's also a very good display. It doesn't get as bright and the resolution is slightly lower. But I think the Mac's display is the best compromise between battery life and resolution, whereas on the XPS, the 4K display ends up really hurting your battery life. You can definitely tell that the XPS is sharper than the MacBooks. So yeah, if you want the best display, the XPS is the best one. So in terms of the keyboard of both devices, I think that they're both very good keyboards, but the Dell XPS is slightly better. It feels like it's almost just a slight bit more travel and maybe some better feedback, and that's what allowed me to type more comfortably on it. But I both think they're both quite similar, and I do think other laptops have better keyboards like ThinkPads or some Lenovo laptops. So these aren't the best keyboards on the market in my opinion. But they're still good enough. Another thing is that the ergonomics mean that both devices have enough area to rest your palms. It's slightly larger on the MacBook Air, but for me, both devices had just enough space in order to rest your hands comfortably. The one problem I did find is that when when resting your hand on the edge of the laptop, the Dell XPS is actually quite sharp, and it made it uncomfortable if you're resting your hand on the edge of the laptop when using just the trackpad. So both trackpads are actually very good and quite comfortable because they have good accuracy, and also the surfaces of both are very smooth, so it makes them easy to use. I do think that the XPS trackpad could have been a bit taller, but obviously they made it a very small laptop, so they couldn't really fit it. But it would have made it more comfortable to use when scrolling. So overall, I'd say the MacBook trackpad is slightly better. So to compare the speakers, I'll start off with the XPS 13. And on the Mac, and finally on the Anker Soundcore Motion Plus speaker. So overall, I'd say that the speakers on the MacBook Air are definitely better than the XPS 13. They have deeper bass and the audio just sounds clearer, but I do think the Soundcore Motion Plus is a big step up above both of them. And so if you really want good audio, you'd need external speakers, or maybe a MacBook Pro 16, for example, would have a lot better speakers. So I'm just going to start this test by running Cinebench on both laptops. I've plugged in the Dell to get full performance, but on the Mac you get full performance even when you're unplugged. So after benchmarking these two devices, if I measure the temperatures on the XPS, you can see it's getting to 43 degrees at some points on the keyboard. If you compare this to the Mac is a lot cooler. If we measure the temperature here, you can see it's getting to 42 degrees on the bottom. On the XPS, even up to 43.9, 45. If you compare this to the Mac, the hottest is about 37 degrees. So if we look at the Cinebench scores for single core, the XPS got 1431 and the M1 Mac got 1491. So the single core scores are actually quite similar. However, the multi-core score was 4770 compared to 7225. So the multi-core performance on the MacBook Air is a lot higher. And you also have to bear in mind the fact that the XPS has to be plugged in and on the max performance mode to get this, whereas the MacBook Air just works like that out of the box. There's also the fact that the XPS will get quite warm on the keyboard and on the bottom, and obviously if you're on battery it will drain the battery a lot faster. So there's quite a lot of benefits to the MacBook. I've personally found that the XPS during normal use, so just watching YouTube videos, does get quite warm at the bottom, and so maybe isn't that good to use on your lap, whereas with the MacBook Air that isn't really a concern. Even if you're stressing it, it's very cool on the bottom, and it doesn't even have a fan. So in terms of the fans on the XPS, they don't come on that often. However, you know, it is obviously better with the MacBook Air to have absolutely no fans. With the XPS, the fans are quite quiet when they come on, and they don't seem to come on randomly like some other Windows laptops. So I'm just going to be playing Grand Theft Auto 5 on the XPS 13. I'm playing on battery power, as you can see, and the performance is actually quite good. It's maintaining around 18 watts. So in terms of the ports of the devices, they both only have 2 Thunderbolt ports and no USB-A's or HDMI's. So I do think that both of them aren't really great. In terms of the webcam quality between the two devices, the XPS 13 is a lot worse. Even though the quality, they're both 720p cameras, the video just looks a lot worse, and maybe even not good enough for Zoom calls. So I'd definitely go for the MacBook Air if you want the better video quality. I carried out a battery test on both laptops involving streaming a YouTube 4K video with the laptops at reasonably high brightness and the volume quite low, and the XPS 13 drained a whole 19% in only 1 hour, whereas the MacBook Air drained 8%. So as you can see, the MacBook Air is a lot better, and you sort of predict maybe 5 hours battery life with the XPS 13 compared to more than 10 with the MacBook Air. So in terms of the stability of the two devices, I think the MacBook Air has been more stable. It hasn't really had any issues. However, the XPS 13 definitely has had some issues. So, for example, right now, the screen is completely black even though the laptop's on. So the keyboard lighting is working. However, the display just isn't working at all. And even after rebooting it, it didn't fix it. Some other problems I've had is when folding down the laptop and the laptop's been in sleep. I've gone to pick up the laptop and it's been extremely hot on the bottom, so that's obviously draining the battery. And lastly, one of the issues I had with the XPS is where I fold it down and then audio continues playing even after I fold down the laptop, and I haven't experienced any of those issues on the MacBook Air. So I would say in terms of stability, the MacBook Air is definitely better. So overall, I'd say that the XPS 13 definitely has its benefits, with the display being sharper and brighter, and also the keyboard feeling nicer to type on, especially with the carbon fiber palm rest, and also it being a little more compact to the MacBook Air due to its smaller bezels, so it just looks more modern. However, the MacBook Air definitely has its benefits, coming in at a lot lower of a price at £1,000 compared to 1,400 for the XPS 13. As well as that, it has better speakers, a larger trackpad, and its performance is just a lot higher, whilst also getting better battery life. So overall, I'd recommend people to get the MacBook Air, and if they want a Windows laptop, I think they should get maybe a HP Spectre X360 that didn't have the stability issues that the XPS 13 had, and also had better speakers. So thank you guys for watching, and please like, comment and subscribe for more videos.